Hey everyone, so here's another tutorial, and today we're going to be counting points in Unity. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So it's not too difficult. Let me make sure I got the right screen up and running. Yes, I do. Okay, so we see here we have a basketball hoop. Okay, and I'll do the thing that's most helpful is I'll go here and we'll just run the program. So the basic idea is, and I'm going to use kind of the old tutorial from the last video, which was shooting the projectile, and that'll help out a lot with throwing the basketball. Now this tutorial will not be emphasizing the ball, so this will just be counting points. You see on the right side is a 0, and if we make it into the hoop, we have a single point. So and that is what the tutorial is about, not how I can't just get the darn ball. There we go. Into the hoop. So because dynamics is a long and lengthy subject in Unity, collisions, which you can do all kinds of cool things. But so what I did was I modeled the whole backstop and the hoop and everything, not the net, and we just have the old projectile just to make it simple. So nothing has changed too much with the projectile, and I'll show you what has changed. Alright, so to go back, we'll start with go to the previous video for shooting the projectile in first-person shooter if you have any questions about that, because that hasn't changed. The bullet has changed a little bit. So the speed has gone down to 6.25. So it's the same bullet as before. I just changed the scale to 0.5 on all axes, and then I went and freeze the rotation just because some weird things were happening. So that's what is different on that. Now you're wondering, how in the world is this counting points? Alright, so I took the target object that looked like a coin you see in the previous tutorial, I think, or one of the other ones, and it's in there. I just moved it in there and I gave it another purpose. So it's just invisible. Let me move this back a little bit, because as you see here, not only did I make it skinnier, I moved it a little bit down. That way, if the ball decides to go in and bounce out, a point will be counted, or it'll minimize the chance of it counting a point. Now you can do other counter measures to prevent that. Maybe another time. So this object here is your target object. So now the collider is added on there. It's set the trigger, and there's a new script called count points. Okay, and I'll show you what's going on with that right now. So this will be added to that object. Alright, so this is what we got going. Count points. And this package here, you're going to use, or library, you're going to use this library for the script, unityengine.ui, because we're going to use the text object that was on your canvas that you saw earlier, the 0, and I'll show you how to add that on there, which is no problem. So we're going to set up the script. You have the public int game points, so that's your actual points itself. This is your text object that you'll see on your canvas, the little white 0. It's going to start out where basically the text object, the text portion, the letters, is going to equal the game points, but it's going to be converted to string or words. So this will be equal to this, but these numbers that are just basically parts of memory will be converted into letters or numbers on the screen. Okay, so that's when the game starts though. And just for good emphasis, I made sure that it's in the update as well. Maybe overkill. One of the two is overkill. It's either start or update, I think. And if not, I'll find out later. But it's working right now as is. So we have a new method on trigger enter. So basically, when the bullet object, which is your basketball now, that has, that's the tag. When it's essentially is colliding with that coin object, it's going to add a point, which is going to be converted to string. And that's pretty much it. So every time the bullet passes through the box collider that set the trigger, the score will update by 1, and that's it. The number is converted into a letter symbol, or what they call a string, and that will be the text of your text object. Okay, so real easy though. The hardest part was actually configuring the basketball and all this stuff in here, just to kind of give an emphasis on what's going on. That was the hard part. Alright, so here's your canvas, or you can think of it as like your HUD screen, or your first person shooter UI screen, or whatever. So this is just, like I said, like I always say, this is low tech, but it works. We add a text object. You can find it down over, I think here, game object UI text, and you just name it point count txt. Okay, don't change any of the text. You can choose whatever color you want, as well as set however big you want it to be, and that's pretty much it. It does not need to have a tag or a layer in this matter. So when you put the script on there, the new script, the count points, okay, you make everything public, which is your text object, and your game points variable, which is an integer. That way it'll show up here, and you can just simply click and drag this object to this variable here. And that basically is saying, it's wiring everything together. It's gonna, every time you change the score, it'll update this. Okay. So the box collider is set the trigger, and just for good measure, just in case, I froze in the rigid body of the coin object. And given it, this could be any geometrical object, and I'll show you why. Freeze the positions and rotates, and turn off gravity. That way you know for sure it's frozen. I probably could set it as maybe kinematic, but I just want to make sure. Okay. Let's see. Gravity was off. I was supposed to show you why. Okay, I'm sorry. I had a moment where I just suddenly forgot. Okay. It could be any object. Okay. So this is just kind of like a placeholder, like a physical representation of, you can see and adjust it. You can move it around. That's why I have it attached to an object rather than an empty game object. That way I can just kind of get an idea of how big this thing is, and it's rendered. When you're done with it, just turn off the mesh renderer, okay? And nobody will know the wiser, okay? So that's pretty much it. You have your previous projectile weapon, which in this case shoots basketballs, and that would just absolutely hurt if you cranked up the speed to it. But in this case, we're just, lobbing basketballs. And like I said, the basketball would be a whole other tutorial. But when you pass through the collider, when you make it into the basket, of course, it should update the score. See, there you go. On the right side, change to 1. Alright, so things you'll need. You'll need a script on the coin object, okay? Or think of it as a target object. I'll say that you need a script on the target object, okay? And that script is count points, okay? And gotta make sure that that object has two public variables, game points, which are your points, and your text object, gamepoints.txt, or gamepoints.txt. Make sure you have a library using Unity Engine UI. And here's your script, okay? I just set it to bullet for the tag down here on private void on trigger enter. Make sure this is accurate. So make sure it's not on collision enter, because that's a whole other thing, okay? Alright, so, and like I said, for the target object, make sure that you have the script, the box collider, make sure it's set the trigger, and that's it. You don't need to have anything set as tag here, okay? Make sure whatever your object is, in regards to your bullet, and of course this is now a prefab, make sure it's tagged either bullet or ball or whatever tag you want the script to look for is in terms of tag, okay? That's pretty much it. As soon as it passes through here, it'll update the score. And you just have to make sure that those objects, that object for, what do you call it? Text object is in there. So, and you want to make sure you create that for your canvas. And canvas, basically just make sure that you have a canvas for one. I think actually if you create a text object, a lot of times a canvas will be automatically generated if you don't have one. And if not, you'll have to create one. Okay, attached. I think you don't have to have it attached to your first person controller or your main camera. I think you have to wire that separately, if anything. But text object, no tag, and no text, just leave it as default. Okay, and that's pretty much it. You can set the size, the color, and this will be changed. I don't want to say in programming overridden, because that's a whole other thing you don't want to say. This will be changed by the on trigger enter. I'm sorry, no, that's incorrect. That will be updated as soon as you start the game, and that's that two-string syntax, game points.toString, okay, that you saw in the script earlier, okay, preferably line 14. You can go back, rewind the video here, and you can see that line 14, line 20, just put that in gamepoints.txt.text equals gamepoints.toString. Just to make sure that you don't have to look for it and be completely annoyed. This guy here, this will basically visualize that text object to this number, okay? And then when it collides, this adds the score and updates the text object, and that's it. So, anyways, thank you for watching. Oh, and when you're done with setting this up, just turn off the mesh render, okay? So now I got a basketball court, so just gotta find a way to get better at shooting hoops. So hope I can do that.